people ask about my job. It's kind of a rare job. There are only about 1,000 in the United States, harbor pilots. And literally, the word pilot means guide. And what I do is guide ships into and out of Tampa Bay. For inbound vessels, I board the ships about 8 miles offshore, near buoys 7 and 8, Egmont Channel. Pilot them through about 35 miles of channel into the port of Tampa and other ports around Tampa Bay. I go on board via a pilot boat, comes alongside the ship, and I climb a pilot ladder, a special ladder that's only used for boarding pilots and disembarking pilots on board the vessel. It's constructed of manila line for a very good reason, and has wooden or very heavy rubber rungs. And the pilot boat comes alongside while the vessel is moving at anywhere from about 6 to 9 knots. It's easier at that speed for the pilot boat to maneuver and to keep in proper position alongside. So we board on the lee side of the vessel, side opposite the wind. I climb the ladder and the rest of the ladder wells up to the bridge of the vessel, and I meet the master of the ship, the captain. He's says the same, captain and master. He actually has a master's license, and not a captain's license. So he's the master of the vessel. I meet with him and I have a conference with him, and at that point he gives control of the navigation of the vessel over to me. Pilotage is compulsory. They have no choice but to use a pilot. Foreign flag vessels, this is. U.S. flag vessels are treated slightly differently. They have to have a licensed pilot, but that pilot can be a member of the ship's crew. They could take a special exam, a federal exam, U.S. Coast Guard exam for a pilot. Okay, now I am licensed under 2 different categories, one state and one federal. I actually have 2 pilot licenses. One for piloting foreign flag vessels, and that's my state license, and the other for piloting U.S. ships, which very few U.S. ships actually have crew members, either captains or other deck officers, that have pilot licenses. So we board generally all of the U.S. tankers that call on Tampa Bay. I pilot the ships into the channel, through all the channels up to the port of Tampa, arrange for tugboats, and I dock the vessel using, we use handheld VHF radios, and I give commands to the tugboat, the assist tugs, and bring the ship alongside. For outbound ships, just the reverse. I board up in Tampa, disembark the vessel out of the Egmont Channel. Typically, on the bridge of a ship, it operates this way. There's a helmsman who does the steering, the pilot who gives the orders, and another deck officer. That would be either chief officer, second officer, or third officer on the bridge at any one time. The captain may or may not be on the bridge. It's not required that he be there. Many ships, many foreign flag ships, or heard of any situation that happening, although it's possible. Oddly enough, the captains on the ships have very little ship handling experience because they use pilots all the time. So they really don't have the experience that a pilot has. Some are very good docking and undocking, but they don't have the same experience, and they certainly don't have the same experience in the same waters that we have. So this is the way it's operated for a very long time. Historically, well, pilots have been around for over 4,000 years, back to the time of Abraham. It's said, we call it the second oldest profession. Some of you may be familiar with the procedure of wrecking ships, where throughout history, people have done things in order to wreck ships, in order to salvage their goods. And pilotage had a little dark history around the year 1000. Might be interesting. That some pilots, unscrupulous pilots, would go on board and purposely wreck the ships. And they'd have crews waiting ashore, and the crews on shore would come on board the vessel and loot the vessel. They decided to put a stop to this. In the Bay of Biscay, there was a law, and I'll read it to you. It's, under a 12th century law, it was enacted that a loadman, which is a pilot, if he lost the ship by default, he was to be taken to the windlass and there beheaded by the crew. And the crew were not to be answerable to any judge because the loadman had committed high treason against his undertaking of pilotage. And Britain also had the same rule about pilots. And the practice of wrecking ships died out. Joseph Conrad, the author, traveled on board many ships throughout his life, and I thought it was interesting that he called a pilot trustworthiness personified. Graduated in 1974, and from 74 through 86 served on about 35 vessels of all kinds, container ships, tankers, freighters. I was a navigator on a tuna boat. I even ran a hovercraft for a little while. But most of the time was with the masters, mates, and pilots, sailing deep sea to North Europe, the Mediterranean, Africa. I've been to Pakistan, South America, both the east and west coasts. The only place I really haven't been is the Far East in Australia. And in 1986, after sailing for 12 years, I became a pilot. And often people want to know, how does one become a pilot? And this is the way it works. The federal government gave control to each of the states to control the pilotage within their state for any foreign flag vessels that call on the ports within that state. So, each state has different laws and regulations, and each state has a pilot commission which regulates the pilots in each of the ports in that state. Most of the states, I think everyone except for Florida, all the states besides Florida, it's more or less a father and son job. Nepotism is pretty rampant, although it's starting not to be that way in some of the ports. But Florida, about 20 years ago, decided that was not a good idea, and decided to examine applicants for pilots. They basically set an exam up. You have to meet minimum qualifications, which is going to see in a certain license capacity at least a minimum of second mate for a 5-year period. And then they have an examination, and well, in my instance, there was 28 applicants for 2 positions here in Tampa. And that's about the average, about 14 or 15 per job. And it's a very fair system and a good system, I think. And I studied probably about 2,000 hours for this exam, and luckily I came in first, and I got the job. It was an 18-hour test. Very difficult. We had to basically draw all of Tampa Bay. We got the outlines of the land, and that was it. And I think they put in the Skyway Bridge. We had to draw all the channels, all the buoys, all the aids, freehand. And it required a tremendous amount of study, but I don't need a chart to move in and out of Tampa Bay at all. Rate setting is done by the pilot board as well. The Board of Pilot Commissioners, which are appointed by the governor of the state, they control the pilotage, and they're within our Department of Business and Professional Regulation. That entity actually controls about 35 different professions within the state. And pilotage is one of them. They set the rates for pilotage that we're allowed to charge. As a member of an association, basically, we're all independent contractors that are grouped together in an association, and we take care of all the business that has to do with the piloting. The state has nothing to do with it at all. We man the pilot station on Egmont Key. We have radio communications with all the ships. We have pilot boat operators. We have dispatchers up in town. Up in Tampa, we maintain an office as well. And we take care of all the expenses that are associated with the business. And at the end of the month, when all the bills are paid, they distribute equally among the 24 pilots. And it's a very long procedure. It's actually much like if a power utility wants to raise its rates, they have to go through quite a long procedure for the raising rates. It's almost the same. It's about a year time from the time you apply for a rate as to when they have a meeting and it's granted or not. Everything is done by certified audit, and it's a very set procedure we have to follow. We come in and examine each of the ports as well from time to time. Let's see.
Are those ports Port Manatee and Port Tampa?
I'm a pilot on all of Tampa Bay. I piloted the whole bay and its tributaries. This is the chart of the upper part of Tampa Bay. This is the Skyway Bridge. Okay, we pilot ships into Port Manatee. We pilot ships into Big Bend, East Tampa, the Alafaya River, big port of Tampa, the channels within the port. Also around to Old Port Tampa, which is in Old Tampa Bay. We run the power plant there. We bring heavy oil to power the FPL power plant there. And although we haven't been in there in a few years, St. Petersburg as well. They're really not very active in St. Petersburg right now. Ships, the cargo the ships carry, I would say about half have to do with the fertilizer industry. Fertilizer in Tampa is a big fertilizer port. All of the phosphate from the center of the state and even closer by is processed by combining liquid sulfur, which is brought in from Mexico, Louisiana, and also nitrogen from anhydrous ammonia, which is also brought in mostly from Trinidad and South America as well. That combined and the deep loaded phosphate, which goes all around the world from Tampa, that comprises probably about half of our business. Also, a big part of our business is oil and oil products, gasoline. There are no pipelines right now between the oil-producing states and Florida. So all the gasoline and some heavy oil, which is used, all the jet fuel, comes in by tanker or tug barge. And that's a big part of our business as well. There is some general cargo, some containerization, bananas, glass, steel products, and passenger ships as well. So we handle all the ships. We handle passenger ships as well. The captains on the passenger ships like to dock their own vessels, and in Florida law, it's at the option of the master of the vessel. He has the option of docking his own vessel. He doesn't have the option of bringing the ship in, but he can dock his own ship if he prefers. And some of the cruise ship captains like to dock their own vessels. And let's see.
How are the rates set for the ships?
How the rate's set?
Yes.
It's a combined rate. Well, actually, there's a fee for the tonnage, gross tonnage. There's a fee for the draft of the ship, and there's a docking and undocking fee as well. So it's the sum of the three fees would be the rate for that vessel. And every ship would be different because every ship has a different tonnage or a different draft. But that's how it's determined.
Can you give us some idea what the range of charges might be?
I would say for the average ship, it's probably about $1,600 for the average size ship. That being something that is about 650 feet long, about a 90-foot beam, and a draft coming in light at 20 feet and sailing deep up to 38 feet.
And that would include all three charges?
Yeah, that would include all three charges.
In and out?
That's one way.
One way.
How many ships do you have coming into the bay, say on a day?
On a given day, there's probably 8 to 10 ships a day coming in every day. So I guess we see 10 would be 3,600 ships per year.
Yeah, they move at night?
Oh yeah, we move 24 hours. 24 hours. I wish we didn't. But we do.
What effect will this new pipeline that they're talking about in the next couple of years, what effect will that have on the number of ships coming in and the Pilots Association and so forth? Didn't you say that oil and that is about half of your...
Yeah, as I understand it, the new pipeline will only be natural gas. That's the way I understood the pipeline. I think it has some capability of carrying other products, but from what I understand, it's just natural gas. And right now, we don't move any ships with that hold natural gas. I'm a little confused as to where they're going to use it myself. I guess they are. Obviously, they do have a use for it, but they do bring some natural gas, propane gas, to Rattlesnake, which is right near, right at the base of the Gandy Bridge. And those are brought in by quite small tug barge units. We've piloted them several times as well, but it's really not a big business. They get 1 or 2 small barges a week. So. Someone else had a question?
What accommodations do you have on Egmont Key?
I have one of the cottages. Have you been by Egmont Key?
I've been by that.
Yeah, there are I guess about 20 cottages, small cottages on Egmont Key, and I have one of those cottages. Yeah.
Do you have to purchase that?
Yes, yeah, I have to purchase that, as well as my share when I come into the association. You actually buy into the association because you have to share in all the assets that the association owns.
Well,
They own all the pilot boats and.
this, when you buy a cottage or whatever
Mhm.
it is that owned by the association or by the individual?
Well, I guess it's owned by the individual. I don't have a deed from them. It's, they just know that I have bought the Williams cottage. I have a piece of paper that says I bought it, because Captain Williams had it before I had it.
And do you live there, or is it just that?
Yeah, I'll go out and stay at night. Yeah, for instance, if I do commute by boat. I live over here on Tarpon Street, and I commute to Egmont Key by boat from my house. Generally, it'll work something like this, where I'll use Egmont Key and I'll sleep there if I get off a ship in the middle of the night. If I get off a ship at midnight, usually I won't come home. I'll sack out on Egmont Key for a few hours. And also, if I have a ship, an incoming vessel, if I know I'll be on a ship at 3, 4 in the morning, I'll go over the evening before, after dinner, and get sleep on Egmont. And the boatmen who who pilot our pilot boats. They'll wake me, and I'll go join my ship.
Do you have a shift schedule? Do you work a particular shift, or you work according to whatever the requirement is?
We have some sleep regulations within the association. I'm on call for 2 weeks and off call for 2 weeks, unless they need me on a weekend when it's busy, then I'll be on call as well. But generally, that's the schedule we work. If we work a few hours during the nighttime, we automatically have 10 hours off for sleep purposes. In other words, you wouldn't work continuously. We call in pilots who are not working if the business gets such where we require that.
Is there a limit as to how many hours a day you work?
There are some, yeah. We never reach those limits. We find that the limits that exist now are way more than you'd want to be awake piloting ships.
How many pilots are there in the Tampa Bay area that are working?
Well, there are 24, and there are 12 on call at any one time. So,
Is it all deep water, or are there shallow spots that are?
well, the channels are deep, yes. The channels are deep. They're 43-foot project depth throughout. Egmont Channel is actually 45-foot. They're maintained very well by the Corps of Engineers. They're surveyed periodically a few times a year. And yes, the water in the channel is very good. Outside the channels, or close to the channel edge, they can be very shallow. We have, it'll drop, the upper bay is the shallowest just outside the channel, it'll be 13 or 14 feet, or even there's some 7-foot lumps, close to the channel. But yeah, the water in the channel is very good. Yes?
I had the experience of running on a shoal, coming back in on a cruise ship about 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
Right off of Egmont Key.
Uh-huh.
They said that the dredging had built up a shoal, and I don't know whether it was a pilot or a captain, but we sat there, a whole cruise ship, and a man had to be taken off by helicopter who was having a heart
Which ship
attack.
was that, do you remember?
One of the Carnival cruise.
Oh, Carnival? Okay.
That explains it.
The infamous cruise.
Do they run their own, or do you all run them?
No, we pilot the cruise ships as well.
That pilot lost his head, by the way.
Skyway Bridge.
Yeah, by the way, I wasn't the pilot for that one. Nor was I the captain of the Exxon Valdez.
Is Fort Manatee going to get there, be able to dredge?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that Minnesota 88 dropped their opposition to it, and I think they'll get the dredging will happen. They needed some help there. The turning basin is pretty narrow, and for the size ships, and unfortunately they made a 90-degree turn at the exit. Port Manatee Channel comes out, and you can see the next cut is at 90 degrees to it. And ships don't make 90-degree turns very well.
Do you pilot ships in storms?
Yeah, if we're inbound, there's really nowhere to go. If we're inbound or outbound, and thunderstorms come up, yeah, we have no place to go. There are no anchorages really that we can use for a deep loaded ship, or outbound. We're restricted to the channel itself, so we have really no choice. We could stop and lay extinct perhaps after doing damage.
Do you have any good stories to tell us about storms?
About storms? Let's see. Well, actually, I came upon that situation not too many years ago, about 1.5 years ago. I was inbound and I was approaching the Skyway Bridge, and I could see a large storm approaching. And at that point in time, our radars, depending upon the radar, the sophistication of the equipment, how modern the equipment is, has a lot to do with it. And some radars can really become useless at that time. when we get very heavy thunderstorms, they really can, you can't see anything at all. They completely white out, you just get a white screen. And, you know, at that point in time, I knew where I was, of course, and I wound up standing out on the bridge wing, waiting. You know, I altered course a few degrees so that I'd be very close to the next buoy. So I knew exactly where I would be, and I just waited and watched until the buoy came, and then made my next course change. And then it widened up, and it was, we could see the Skyway Bridge, and it was not a problem at all. But there was a few moments where, if the buoy wasn't going to appear very soon, I had considered just grounding the ship rather than hitting the bridge.
Then you were not the pilot who hit.
You know, oddly enough, does anyone know the name of that vessel that hit the Skyway Bridge? It was the Summit Venture. And I did pilot the Summit Venture, but it was about 15 years after it hit the bridge. It was here a few years ago. I'm surprised none of the media picked up on it. But, yeah. And I actually piloted the ship out now, so the ship still exists.
Is there anything to the Tampa Triangle?
I'm aware. But anyway, interesting, you mentioned about the storms. We now have equipment, okay, and I have this orange box. This is a good way to introduce it. And this is a navigation device